Coming up, Mike McKee, the CEO of ObserveIT, joins us to talk about the importance of focusing on people and how when you do that, you experience growth. So we'll talk about the growth of ObserveIT and what he's got planned for the future. And then Paul and I are going to break down why difficult people don't actually exist, the cause of workplace drama, and how to learn and how to keep it going. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/BSW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. Do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these things can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending your assets? Have you penetration tested your public assets? Start 2018 by taking a proactive approach to securing your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting at blackhillsinfosec.com and see how they can help you sleep better at night.
Hey, everybody, and welcome. It's episode 103 of Business Security Weekly. We're recording it on Monday, October 22nd, 2018. I'm still Michael Sanarcangelo, your straight talking guide to elevated performance and accelerated results. Joining me from the studio, sporting a nifty new ear setup, your friend of mine, Paul Asadorian.
How's it going, Michael? It's good to be here.
Going for the professional broadcaster look now?
Yeah, well, it's weird. I had my typical over-the-ear headphones that I use for this set. And it looked weird when I was wearing a winter hat and such. So I decided to try and switch to earbuds, which turns out was a lot more plumbing and engineering to get there. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes this show.
I'm jealous. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay. All right. Well, let me get us into today because I'm excited we got Mike with us, and I'll tell you how I met him the first time. When I was writing for CISO, I used to write a column called The Slap Shot, and the idea was we take a single topic, we distill it down, we put it out there, and then I get a chance to react to it. And I got this fantastic note from somebody that worked with Mike, and I said, "How about an actual NHL guy to take a shot at it?" It was like, yeah, of course, and it was great. We had a great series of conversations over the last couple of years. We talked about stuff a lot. Excited then that they partnered with us at Security Weekly, and excited then to bring in Mike. And we're going to talk about what his experience is like as that CEO and those things. So we always talk about, but how do you scale? But how do you make decisions? But how do you figure these types of things out? And Mike's got the experience and the ability to do that. So Mike, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Great to be here, Michael. Paul as well. You're looking good.
Oh, thank you. I love your background, Mike. It's awesome.
It's actually real. It almost looks fake, but the Charles River in Boston is right behind me, where we had the head of the Charles this weekend. So we're very lucky to have this view.
It's awesome.
And a nice day, and some good baseball being played up in the city right now, and football.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good time to be in Boston. That's for sure. All right.
And
so,
hockey, yes, to be honest.
a lot of people know about ObserveIT. A lot of people are going to go look it up now. But one of the things I think is interesting is you guys have, since you've taken the helm, shifted a bit. You've shifted the focus. You've shifted, and what we talked about in our preparation for this was you shifted from reactive to reactive and proactive over the last 2 years. So you're not just looking for visibility where it was interesting that you guys could essentially network record or otherwise record things that had happened. So I had visibility, but now you're actively looking for detection. Tell us a little bit about what that transition is, what that means. What does that mean for the people who are experiencing it? And then I want to talk about what that process has looked like.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's been driving, and we talked a little bit about this before, Michael, is people realizing there's a massive blind spot internally. And historically, so much of cybersecurity was focused on the external threat, whether it be malware, ransomware, foreign countries. And all these studies started coming out around data breaches saying that 50% of the time it involves someone on the insider. And Normally, a breach like that can cost $5-10 million. So this acknowledgement that there's a real problem out there has led a lot of our customers to, as you're saying, be or want to be much more proactive about it. So we've taken our technology, which historically was a really good forensics tool, a very good tool for compliance, and built in a lot more capability around the alerting such that it can be both a reactive tool and a proactive tool.
So what I like about this is that, when I said, all right, well, how did you make the decision? You said, oh, it's simple. I went and talked with the CISOs. I partnered with them. I looked at the people who were using our tools, and I listened to what they had to say. And that's pretty much given us the direction and fueled our growth. So what does that mean? I mean, a lot of people say that, right? Oh, I listen to people. I know talking to you, you actually do. So give us some of the insights on how you actually partner with the CISOs that you guys work with and how you're learning from them.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it started out by having it be one of our core values as a company is around being customer centric. Lots of companies have values like that. It's how you actually put those values into practice. That's big. And to answer your question, Michael, like we called them up and we invited them to our office and we brought them together in a customer advisory board. And quite often, I think companies make the mistake of having these customer advisory boards be an opportunity to throw PowerPoints up and show them the product roadmap and show them the direction. What we did is we got about a dozen people in a room and we asked them to go around the table, ask them how they got value from our product and what sucks in our product. And literally that was supposed to be about an hour of the day one agenda. It ended up running for 4 hours. And what was just amazing is instead of people talking at us or us talking to them, they were talking to each other and they were sharing their concerns around insider threats. They were sharing how they use our solution. They were sharing what other solutions they were using, but bringing a group of people like that, and I think it's got to be smaller than 15, and having it be very conversational and very candid is how we've had a tremendous amount of success hearing the truth, as I always say. I mean, we don't have the truth in our four walls here. The truth sits with our customers using our product and better understanding their problem and better understanding how to help them with their problem.
Do you bring the same people to each one, or do you rotate it, or do you overlap it? How do you build continuity, or is that less important as having a genuine conversation with people?
Yeah, it's actually become a little dicey in that we have an A list and a B list. Once we got this rolling, we have one every 6 months. We literally last March sent out 19 invites, kind of expecting to sort of get 13, 14 people that could come to Boston. We had 18 acceptances within 24 hours. Wow. So it's gotten a little, I don't want to say political, but we do have to rotate people sometimes. And then the last customer advisory board that we had last month, we had to limit it to one person per company, which is too bad. But if it gets too much larger than 15 or 20, then I just don't think the conversation is open and as candid. I think over time, what we'll do is we'll divide them a little bit more by vertical, meaning, one of our biggest verticals is financial services. So we may have a financial services cab, and then we might have one around IT services or telecommunications or healthcare, government, as we continue to get bigger. But it's key to keep it small. And, what's also key is to get the right level person, in that ideally you get someone that understands from a business side how important it is and is involved with reporting up to management or the board, but at the same time understands the tactics and understands the day-to-day challenges and security of too many alerts and too many threats, and how do you make something practical and usable in today's security environment.
So it sounds like, and I know we're making it sound easier than it really is that the first thing is you got to have the right people on your cab, right?
Yeah.
And then the second thing, which I think is really hard too, is you got to have the willingness to hear criticism, which it also sounds like you did as well. Which are two important
it's sobering.
Things.
It's sobering. It's humbling. I walk out of there a little bruised and battered like the hockey days, but it's incredible how appreciative people are to, I don't want to say have straight talk, but like literally talk about what's working and what's not working. And what's amazing is they beat you up all day long, but then you're going for beers at the end of the day and they're like, wow, that's the best cab I've ever been to.
That's awesome.
And then 6 months later, you show some progress against those things. Mm-hmm. And you start that cycle of really improving the product and really focusing it on the needs of people that much more.
I would say you should absolutely call it straight talk.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of straight talk. Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, what I've been trying to explain to people lately, right, is we learn in school the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Shortest distance between two people, straight talk, and that's what you're offering people. All right, so give me an example then, Mike, of where, and I'll lead you down this a little bit. We've talked about, for example, scaling. So today, a lot of people go, "Oh, we're in the cloud," and you say, "Why are we in the cloud?" Well, we got to be in the cloud, and they'll say things like, "Oh, it's load or it's elasticity or whatever else." Your push into the cloud is a little bit different. How did you guys decide, or how did you get pushed into the cloud? How did that come about?
Good point, Mike. To your point, it's always a question of when, not if. We got pushed because historically organizations, and frankly, we would recommend this. Historically, organizations would look at a portion of their population, the high-risk portion, and for a long time might be the privileged users. But what's happening now is people are realizing that anyone can be a threat. And there's more people with more access to more information, more different ways than ever before. And organizations are flatter. There's value on transparency and sharing information. So more and more of our customers have, faster than we expected, wanted broader visibility on what's going on across all the different areas of the organization. And clearly, when you go from monitoring 500 people in engineering or 500 traders to 5,000 or 50,000 or even multiple hundred thousands, you need to scale. And that's easier done in the cloud, and it's done more cost effectively for customers in the cloud. Another huge area is, especially as it pertains to insider threat, is sharing best practices. We have 1,800 customers right now, and most of those are on-premise deployments. And as a result, I can't tell you in an automated fashion which of our 300 insider threat alerts are firing in all of those 1,800 customers. Once you're in the cloud and once you're hosting that, then all of a sudden we start seeing in an anonymized way which alerts are the best indicators of insider threat, because there's so much noise out there that so much of the game is minimizing that noise. And by being in the cloud, not only do we increase the scale and increase the reporting capabilities, but we become smarter and we become able to share that intelligence with our customers.
I like that. What I like about it too is the way you talked about it to me is you said, look, we're not doing a cloud so we can turn around and call ourselves a platform. In fact, I brought that up and you were like, yeah, we're a solution. We're trying to meet the needs that people have. And I really like this. To that end, then, you talked about during the recent CAB, the clear message back to you was stick to your knitting, keep the focus on the people. And we kind of talked about this a bit, but I'll let you pick it up. It means that, you're not a SIM, you're not UEBA with the emphasis on the entity. It's that you're doing something different. So as the rest of the world's kind of figuring out the buzzwords and everybody wants to be a platform and do these different types of things, you're really just trying to focus on the problem that you solve. How does that work? Like what's helping you keep that focus, and what is that translating into for you as a company?
Yeah, so there's the old adage, strategy is much more about deciding what not to do than what to do. And the temptation's always there to be pulled in different directions. And, it's often a customer pulling you there, but what you have to think about is, what's the primary use case for the biggest segment of our customer base? And to your point, Michael, stick to your knitting on that. And, right now our greatest value is in providing comprehensive visibility around what people are doing and when they're violating security policies, and then providing context around what the person was doing before and after that security policy violation, such that you can quickly figure out and speed up your investigation as to whether it's something you should be concerned about or not. Your point on platform versus solution, that was a debate internally for a long time. There's so many people at these security conferences that throw all these buzzwords around and we're the next platform and we do A, B, C, that I was adamant against it for a long time. I said, no, we're an insider threat management solution. We want to identify the insider threat. We want to streamline the investigation. We want to prevent data exfiltration, period. And by the way, we'll feed a SIM, we'll feed a UEBA. Most people don't want multiple dashboards. Most people want a single pane of glass. So we'll happily feed those tools. We'll feed security, orchestration, automation tools, whatever it might be. We just want to be phenomenal at, as I said, providing that visibility and identifying that threat. what's funny is we have started calling it a platform because our customers have said, well, we've got other data like HR data and physical security data that we want to feed in and correlate with the data that you're getting from the endpoints and from the servers. So I have reneged a little bit and gone into the platform, but once again, it's only because of what the customers are saying, and it's still around the tight mission of identifying and eliminating insider threat by providing that visibility and that early warning when things are going in ways that they shouldn't be.
Well, I just want to say quick, I had a talk a number of years ago with some physical security folks, and they said something like along the lines of, can you imagine what happens when we're able to correlate data of what time people come in and exit with, jobs and job performance? Like, we'll detect things faster. And they flipped it and they looked at it really fast and they said, not negative. Actually, we'll start to figure out if somebody's having a tough time and we can properly intervene. And I realized no matter where you're listening, at some level, you're like, what the? At the same time, though, hold on. People are asking for this. They're asking for that data. They want to do better. As soon as you use the word context, Mike, I love it. So for that, I was going to ask about this, but I'm going to lead into it this way, because what I always wonder is, so you have a cab, you listen to everybody, they give candid feedback, you listen to it, you maybe even embrace it, you come back. There's only so much you can do. And it's sometimes easier to say yes than it is to say no to figure it out. You do something that's kind of interesting in terms of just saying, oh, okay, heard you, thanks, we're on it. You actually kind of come back and start helping people make that decision with you. You're asking them a series of questions. So talk to us, because you were just talking about access to data. And you told me that's something that, I don't know if it surprised you or not, but it certainly popped up as a priority during these types of sessions. So what kinds of questions do you ask people then to then make sure that you're guiding the company in the direction that's proper?
Yeah, we actually use polling capability during the meetings. It helps in the afternoon when people are getting a little tired and stuff like that. But, when we actually do put some PowerPoint slides up after the sort of come to Jesus in the morning element, we're putting up choices. If we can do A, B, C, or D, what are you more worried about? And I remember we were talking about network visibility and providing threats with regards to network risk or risks across the network. And people were like, no, thanks. We're all set there. We got a lot of tools as it pertains to the network. What we need is endpoint visibility. Ultimately, over time, we need more cloud visibility, but we're all set over there. So we're like, okay, good. And once again, we'll rank order from data exfiltration, whether it's via USB, whether it's via cloud sharing tools, whether it's versus network drives, like which matter more to you. And literally asking people to vote, and it's kind of this live poll where you can see it going up during the meeting, is a great way to do that. And I'd also say it's in much the same way. It's surprising to how appreciative people are of straight talk and how appreciative people are of telling them that things aren't going well. People are also appreciative when you say, no, we're not going to do that, or no, that's not coming for a while. And they just want to know one way or the other, which tools are going to mitigate which risks. And if you're straight with them that, hey, that's a long way out, that's not a focus area, they're okay. I mean, you started off, Michael, by talking about productivity. And a lot of people have seen our data and like, oh, that's perfect. I can find out which people are most productive because I can see which applications they're working on and what they're doing during the day. And we're like, that's not what we do. You can take our data and go do whatever you want with our data, but that's not our focus. Our focus is, some of our people, they don't call it insider threat solution. They call it an information protection system or solution, which I thought was interesting. Another one of our customers calls it an alert-based investigation tool. So the whole idea is the goal of protecting information and being able to investigate quickly what's going on, not in the case that I was talking about of like productivity.
I like it. Well, and I like the fact, you've talked, your exact words were telling the story of the data. That's your focus. And I think that that's so important in the way that starts to help. And we take a look at this. All right. So what I thought was just interesting there is you talked about insider threats, and we talk about insider threat assessments. And this is one of those things that insider threat's not new. Opinions on it are also not new and possibly not always accurate. And one of the things I've noticed in the last couple of weeks out working with folks is they go, yeah, I don't know what to do about it. I don't know where to start. I don't know what's up with it. And I know that you've started to look at some stuff around this. And so I'm curious, when you start looking at insider threat assessments, was that driven from CAB? Was that driven because it's a good way to better inform or advance your business? Is it giving back to the industry? Like What was the driver behind it? And then tell us a little bit about what you're looking at in terms of insider threat assessment.
Yeah, it's driven a lot to answer the question that you just mentioned, Michael, which is people realize it's a blind spot. They realize they need more visibility. They realize they need alerts when people are veering outside the lines. But how much do they really need to worry? I mean, you'll run into a lot of customers that are like, hey, I trust my employees. We have a good culture. I'm not worried. Couple flaws with that in that, more and more organizations have lots and lots of contractors. IDC says by 2020, 40% of workers will be either contractors or project workers. Then there's more and more younger workers that aren't at places that long. And as a result, the loyalty is not as great. But the question still exists. How much do I have to worry about the employee, the millennial, the contractor? And the insider threat risk assessment, which we're launching right now, is a way to do that. And we'll take a look across 10 different controls, from data exfiltration to privilege access to system tampering to data infiltration. And we'll try to let people know, is this a small, medium, or large problem? We're literally red, yellow, green across these 10 different areas. And listen, we don't want to waste our customers or our prospects' time if they've got greater security threats. And historically, what we've done is we've said, hey, just do a proof of concept or a proof of value. And over half the time, after doing a proof of value where people will install the product for a couple of weeks, they realize that there's a fair amount at risk and a fair amount of things happening that they didn't realize, and they end up buying the software. But we wanted to go one level deeper than just showing the product and ask a lot of questions across people in the organization. And as I said, try to figure out how big a problem is this, because certainly security professionals have lots of problems they have to deal with. And in some organizations, it's a really big problem, and some it's a medium, and some it's a small. And we want to help them evaluate that.
Mike, how far into, and it's kind of interesting, it reminds me of in like DevOps where we talk about shifting left. How much have you addressed that problem to give people tools? Because I've certainly gone through, contractors over the years, right? Being a smaller business, mostly a side hustle, I've had to rely on contractors. But how much do you have questionnaires that can help screen new employees and new contractors, or prospective employees and contractors, that could maybe help you decide whether there could be a threat in the future, or is that part of shifting left in insider threat?
Yeah. So if I think about shifting left or going upstream, I don't like to use the morbid example, but we talk about it sometimes of some tools out there like trying to catch a bullet. It's too late. The bullet's been fired.
Yeah.
You want to find out when the person buys a gun. You want to find out when they buy ammunition. You want to find out when they're in a bad mood. So without a doubt, and I think this is unique to insider threats, is there are early warning signs. You do start seeing people do things differently than what they normally do. And if you have context around what those early signs are, you can figure out whether it's concerning or not. From an ObserveIT perspective, that's actually an example more of a, back to this platform idea, more, looking at, because there's different tools out there that can measure the tone in people's emails and start to psychologically profile when they're not as mentally stable as they might have been before. We don't do that right now. But with our cloud platform, we allow people to bring that data in and then correlate it against their different activity. And that's another example, Paul, of people mentioning us like, hey, I got this behavioral tool over here. It'd be great to see that data in conjunction with your data, which is, once again, another great use case for the cloud platform.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like, too, your commitment to doing an API that allows the data to come out and data to go in, right? Because
For sure. It was funny. We one of the early CAB questions, I'll never forget it. We were building an app for one of the bigger security orchestration tools out there for, resolving the different cases. And they said, don't worry about the fancy app. Just give me the data. I'll figure it out on my own. And as a result, we literally had this one app, and the poll question was, okay, which of these next 5 apps should we prioritize, or which of these 5 other applications should we prioritize building an app for? And instead, the feedback we got was, just make your APIs more modern, more reliable, such that I can pull data out and push data back in a much easier fashion. And as a result, we redid our full API portal such that it's easier to do that. So it's a good example of, doing what the customer says and meeting their needs more quickly.
So I want to go back to the insider threat assessment. So one of the other things you said to me, and I always like this as an approach, is Your goal is to provide value, whether they work with you or not, whether they're a client or not. And what I really like about that is, if I'm a CISO today and I'm trying to figure out, it's not so much what I can do, it's what I can't stop doing, but probably need to, but I'm not really sure. A lot of the stuff that people engage in, we're moving towards more and more evidence. And this feels like one of those, look, we're going to come in, we're going to check 10 or so factors. We're going to use a combination of data, and we're going to present to you back a story. It's going to help you understand. And it might not be a top 3 priority for you. Good. I'm guessing you would politely say, we'd like to keep in touch with you. But to me, that feels like that's pretty valuable. Have you guys started down this path yet, or is this something that you're getting going now?
Yeah, it's always tricky when you're the software vendor and you're doing an assessment, because what you don't want is this, you do the assessment and it says buy our solution. That doesn't do anybody any good. And frankly, it's one of those things that if it's not that big a deal and it's not firing that many different alerts down the road, well, it's going to get trumped down the road. So you save yourselves both some time in that, there's a lot of customers out there and a lot of organizations out there that have a real insider threat problem. And I think about some of the customers that we work most effectively with, and, we have very good relations at, I always call it the top level that's on the executive management team, the sort of director level, and then, project manager, tactical level. And those are organizations where they've got real concerns around their intellectual property. And the idea of doing the insider threat assessment is not just to be talking to the InfoSec guys, but be trying to get a sense across the organization, how big a concern is it and how big is the risk? And to your point, it might point to improving your privileged access monitoring, which is something that we have nothing to do with. So we'll let the people go figure that out. But if they want a holistic view and they want an application that gives them visibility across what all the people are doing, no matter where they're working, well, we can help them, and they realize that's a big enough problem. But once again, we don't want to waste people's time, and we do want to point them in the right direction if there's another direction that would help them address bigger issues.
No, I like this. I'm going to predict right now, you're going to find in some circumstances somebody does this because they're curious what the results are, and the executive team is going to come back and go, oh, we need this now. I didn't even know it was possible. And you're going to have security folks that are going to say, didn't realize that. Didn't realize it was a big a deal up top, because it's all about that context and it's all about putting that story the right way. So is this something people can get today, or are you looking for people to help round it out? Like where is this at in the process? Because if this is the kind of thing that gets me excited, I'm pretty sure other people are excited listening to it.
Yeah. So we literally, at our customer advisory board meeting in September last month, we presented it, and we have 3 folks that are at the meeting now that are starting to do it. So yeah, it's available now. It will be up on our website very soon. Like I said, we like to pilot things before we publicize them too much, but this is something that
glad I could help you with that.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, once again, like I said, so we've seen a huge trend in the last couple of years from concern around insider threat being in the regulated industries going to the non-regulated industries. And it started in the regulated industries because they needed visibility on what people were doing to meet compliance needs. It was 2 years ago at RSA that I remember that I truly felt for the first time that the security driver was bigger than the compliance driver. So people now care more about the security, mitigating risk from a security perspective than they do meeting compliance when they think about an insider threat solution. And that's something that spans across all different industries. So we want to make sure that, as I said, we're helping customers figure out where on the priority list it should be.
I love that. And I love the fact that you guys are all about putting that story together, that you're guiding teams to action. That's always going to be exciting.
Now we're biased because, much like our proof of concept that literally, converts, almost 2/3 of the time, we do believe there are big risks out there, and we do believe it's an area that hasn't gotten enough visibility, no pun intended. And as a result, we think the assessment will tell you that there's real risk out there, but we'd rather have customers come to that conclusion rather than us. And we'd rather, like you said before, Michael, leave them with recommendations more holistically across the organization, not just around what we do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why this works well. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's interesting having been in security for a while now And every time the subject of insider threat comes up, it's like, yeah, we got other things to worry about, right? And I think we're starting to see the tides shifting, which is encouraging. And there's a lot of issues out there that are faced by IT and IT security teams that we've largely pushed to the side because, like, we can't deal with that, right? And Mike, do you run into the situation where your product, and this happened to me when I worked at Tenable, right? Your product can uncover potential risks and a lot of exposures. And some clients are like, yeah, that would just be more stuff I'd have to fix, so I don't want to implement your product or tune it in a certain way because that's too much work for me.
Sometimes, to be honest, Paul. And that actually goes back to the importance of usability and making sure that there isn't too much noise. Because, if it's too noisy, there's just too many different things going on in security to use a tool that's not practical, and that's throwing off a lot of false positives. So, we work very hard to bring those false positives down, and we work very hard to make sure that people can ascertain very quickly whether it's a false positive or not. So that is something we hear. What we also hear sometimes is we can see too much with your solution. And that, once again, goes back to the mission of the solution. And the mission of the solution is not to become a voyeur on people that have an axe to grind within the organization. The mission of the solution is to identify people when they go outside of security policies or security rules or put intellectual property of the organization at risk. So it's important to define that. I mean, to me, it's a high-class problem to have too much visibility. But that is something that we'll run into sometimes. And I always talk about people, process, technology. That's why it's very important to be aligned from a people perspective, from a process perspective, and then bring in technology as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, and I think it's important to go over those things to, adjust people's perception, of the insider threats that are out there, which I don't think it's, high enough in a lot of organizations' priority. And for reasons like that, which are, easily explained by talking about the mission of your product and such.
Yeah, I heard a story last week, and obviously it'll all remain anonymous, but, one of the government agencies that hands out, very material grants to different universities around the country, in the kind of $500,000 to $5 million grants, they were using our software and, one of these universities, and what they found out is that the panels that were putting forth the proposals for these grants were sharing some of the information overseas. And the people that was going to overseas were all of a sudden applying for the grant from a different institution. And this government body was literally awarding $5 million grants to organizations that didn't come up with the idea. And the university had no idea until they started watching more closely what some of their researchers were doing. And it's real money, it's real jobs, it's real reputation. And as a result, it's something that you want to be seeing sooner rather than later.
Yeah, agreed. That was all I had, Michael.
It was good stuff. It was always awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to let people know in a second here, Mike, where they can find you. I love these types of conversations, and I always enjoy when we get a chance to take a look at the leadership of a company, and people can see, whoa, it's real, it's candid, it's direct. This is right, the straight talk stuff that we talked about. I wish I could tell people. I'd have to go back and count how many times things that you've said are things that I love, in terms of the context and the straight talk and everything else. So, this is good stuff, and I'm excited. I'm glad that you guys are doing well. And I'm really excited to hear about how the insider threat assessment unfolds, and the value that brings in some of the prizes that come out of that. So thanks so much for joining us. We're going to take a quick break. And as I told you, if you want to learn more about this, and now you want to take a peek at it, you can check out a cool new webpage at observeit.com/security weekly. So you'll go right there. You can check it out. You can see it all for yourselves. And when we come back, we're going to talk about why there's no such thing as difficult people and how you can learn to learn and keep it going. We'll be back in a minute.